baby, right here. Alright, so it's already been 2 weeks since my album is out. Some of y'all reached me out to compliment the album and share even. And I want to give my sincere gratitude. Thank you. So, I wanted to make a video explaining about the tunes and some of the compositional backstories and behind the scenes stories for listeners to reference in order to better enjoy the music. So overall, as I explained in some other posts, this album was recorded 7 years ago, and as far as I remember, I wasn't quite ready to make a record because I wasn't the musician I had hoped to be upon making this record. So as a composer of the tunes as well as the leader, I didn't want to approach this album to showcase my ability as a musician, but to lay the fine compositional groundwork for my sidemen to showcase their amazing musicianships and to serve the music at its best. I always believe that the music that I play is best served when performers are selfless and work communally. Albeit I wasn't the musician I had hoped to be, I have had the most musical inputs from various inspirations at the time, which enabled me to write some of these tunes I am very proud of to this day. As you probably noticed, the theme of this album is Cosmos. Specifically, it's about realizing how insignificant we are compared to this grand cosmic arena called observable universe. Surprising thing is that rather than despair and hopelessness, it kind of gave me the feeling of liberation once I realized how insignificant I am. And that was what gave me the initial inspiration as far as the conceptual themes go. You can read more about the conceptual explanation on my website and via liner note on my physical copy, which I have right here. Ta-da! So, here are the explanations for each tracks. Okay, the first track, Vacuum. This is a guitar and drums duo track, and guitar part is thoroughly composed where drums are improvised. The main musical inspiration of this track was the music of 20th century composers, specifically Toru Takemitsu's guitar pieces. Even more specifically, Toru Takemitsu's guitar piece called Equinox. I wanted to compose something that sounded freely improvised but written on staff with musical structures and themes. And if you listen carefully, it has not strictly but somewhat of a form that resembles AABA, although that's not exactly true. But I never really believed in arbitrariness in music, and after analyzing some of my favorite 20th century composers and their pieces, which I found that it contained motives and themes and structures, cells and etc., I decided to write music that is somewhat similar. And if you actually listen to Toru Takemitsu's Equinox and this track, you can kind of tell where I got some of these inspirations from. And this music sort of reminded me of Void of Space Upon Completion. So I decided to name it Vacuum because space is vacuum. Okay, so this is the title track, Supernova. So one of the main objectives that I tried to do with this composition was doubling in unison along with Jungle Groove. One of the main things that I wanted to do with this tune was that remove the aspects of linear melodies, but let the harmonic figures function as melodies. And you can sort of find these kind of aspects in Alan Holdsworth's music, although I wasn't really thinking of him when I was writing this music. And since I wanted the harmonic figures to function as melodies, I wanted to come up with the best standalone sets of changes for solo sections that somewhat feels relevant to the whole tune, but technically not because it wasn't previously introduced. And honestly, that was the hard part. I remember trying to write the solo changes for this tune at the NYU Jazz Basement, and I just couldn't come up with it. So I packed my things up and I was leaving. And it's kind of funny that the changes occur to me as I was leaving the practice room. So I had to sit my ass back down and write the changes down. It was one of those cool moments. Yeah, and the opening figure kind of reminded me of this immense explosion that was beautiful. So that's why I named it Supernova. No supernova is visible in the naked eye, but yeah, I don't know how it looks like in real life. And I guess this was the best representation of my imagination through what I do best. So, yeah. Okay, Tunguska. Alright, so actually this tune is the first composition that I wrote. I was 19, I believe, and I just remember trying to write something that was challenging to my ears at the moment, and I wanted to write something in 5, but I couldn't write anything in 5 because, anything odd meter at the time was still very foreign to me. Yeah, I mixed it with sections of 6 and sections in 5. And the reason for the title is actually really simple. When I was writing this tune, I was watching a documentary on Tunguska event, and that's how I came up with the title of this track. I guess the cool thing about this track is that after piano solo, I was supposed to give the cue to take the head out, but I believe I missed on giving the cue, thus forced Nathan, the alto player, to take an unexpected solo, which opened the solo with a lot of space, no pun intended. And I really love that. And Nathan's solo is actually my favorite part of this track. He took one chorus and I thought it was beautiful, so I wanted another chorus, but all of that was unrehearsed, so it gave this kind of feeling of being on edge, but I think it actually worked for better. Another crazy part about Nathan's solo on this track is that at certain sections he kept playing this line that sounded outside but really cool. And after I recorded the track, I realized that I actually had a wrong chord written on the alto part, but he made it sound right. So I thought that was kind of a cool little moment. And it also proves how amazing his musicianship is. So, yeah. Okay, Planet Earth. This track is, I guess, the ballad of this album. Also, this track probably has the deepest conceptual values out of all the tracks in my album. And if you have some aural identification skills, you could probably tell that the first piano theme is stacked perfect fifths. Perfect fifth, as you know, is known to be one of the most consonant intervals. If you also keep on stacking perfect fifths, you reach all 12 notes. A most consonant place that has everything for us is Earth, and it is our home, our breathing ground, that everything we've ever known has existed. That's why I named this composition Planet Earth. There's a famous photograph. It's actually featured on the back of this album, which is a picture of Earth from 6 billion kilometers away. It was taken by the Voyager 1 probe, and Carl Sagan's pale blue dot speech was a huge inspiration for this composition as well. So, which I put an excerpt of it in the inside of this album. So yeah, check it out. Rings of Saturn. Alright, so this composition was somewhat inspired by the minimalist composers like Steve Reich, and initially I wanted to write something that resembled this piece called Octet by Steve Reich, and it turned out to be somewhat quasi Robert Glasper-esque tune, which wasn't something that I intended. So yeah, the first figure in the beginning, I kind of wanted to mimic the minimalist compositions, and that's why it has that kind of a repeated figure. And yeah, this tune is also in 5, but I didn't want to make it obvious, so that's another thing that I was trying to achieve. Yeah, I wanted to write something that wasn't so clave oriented, so yeah, for whatever that is worth. And if I recall correctly, I wasn't going to take a solo on this, but I had a last minute change of my mind for second takes, and I think it worked for the better. And now, if I tell you a secret, it's actually unfinished. I tried to write more materials for this composition, but I could not finish the tune upon its deadline. But I think it's actually better, and it actually came out more fulfilling to my ears, oddly. Plus, if I wanted to represent everything that I had in my mind, the composition would have been like 20 minutes long. But sometimes I do wonder how the tune would have sounded like if I actually completed it. So the repeated figure in the beginning kind of resembled a ring. You know, Saturn is one of the most unique looking planet in the solar system. It's also one of the biggest next to Jupiter, and this tune sort of resembled Saturn, so I decided to name it Rings of Saturn. Alright, Space. Okay, so this track is the only solo guitar piece of this album. I also should note that this track and the next track I had written for one of my teachers named Diane Moser, so these two compositions are for Diane, who recently passed away. So yeah, one of the coolest audio footages available on the web is a sound of space. As some of you know, sound vibrations cannot occur in the vacuum, but the Voyager probe has managed to translate some of the electromagnetic vibrations or electromagnetic pulse as sounds, and I listened to some of them and gave me this kind of haunting sense and the fear of void, which led me to make an attempt to transcribe some of these sounds on the guitar. And I don't think I was successful, but at the same time it also gave birth to this composition. Yeah, it may sound like it is arbitrary, but there is a melodic cell. You first hear that E, that high E, na, na, then the D next to it, da, and then the low A, na, and that is the main theme with improvised rumbling soundscape achieved by Floyd Rose Bridge. So nothing about this track is actually arbitrary, rather it's more close to thoroughly composed. And yeah, this sound was achieved by a guitar with Floyd Rose Bridge with a lot of reverb and a lot of delay and a lot of overdrive and the use of volume pedal. There was no overdubs or any secondary synthesizers to achieve the sound. And this track was the very last thing that I recorded at the session. Everyone already went home by then, except Mark, because we had to record the first track. And after we recorded that track, I was like, okay, thank you, Mark. Bye bye. And then I recorded this track, which was one take only. And after I finished the track, I went back into the booth, seeing Mark actually sitting down and he gave me a huge compliment about this track, and which I have a very fond memory of. Also, my mom listened to this track and she told me it scared her. So I think I have achieved that goal to accurately represent the void of space at the most raw sonic form. So I'm proud of that. All right, Jesus Song. This is the last track of the album, and most definitely one of the cool ones. It's because this composition was achieved by using a compositional method called musical cryptogram. In a nutshell, you align the alphabets and the musical notes, and you can do anything with it, such as writing secret message and translate that to a musical notes. I believe I used two different systems of musical cryptogram. I don't remember which ones. But yeah, you can find more information about musical cryptograms by just doing a little bit of research. At the time I was writing this composition, I was a devout Christian and avid churchgoer, and I wanted to write a message regarding the gospel of Jesus, I believe. Now that it's been 10 years since I stepped foot in a church, I don't actually remember what I wrote. But in the end, it birthed this kind of cool Pink Floyd-esque stoner rock tune. So who knows? Maybe Jesus and stoner rock goes really well together. And yeah, the only thing about this track is that the ending part, I think I would have played differently. If I was to record this tune now, I would have played it very differently. But yeah, I think it leaves some room for improvement. So I mean, after all, imperfections somehow perfectly fit into the big picture. So yeah, there's a place for us all. Alright, so this is a CD exclusive track, but I do plan to release my album on Bandcamp eventually, which will also include this track, so stay tuned. I mean, there's not much to say about this. It's a classic contrafact to Honeysuckle Rose, which also has kind of cool contrapuntal melodies. Classic Miles Davis arrangement off of Round About Midnight. Yeah, nothing much to say, honestly. I love playing standards, and Leu Cha is one of my favorites, so yeah. So there's this one instance towards the end when we're trading solos. At a certain point, I came in thinking that it was my turn, only to realize something was wrong, and I realized that I actually completely skipped the piano. But I sensed something was wrong, but music must have went on. So yeah, that's one of the cool things about this track. Yeah, I wanted to include a standard in my album, but I didn't think this track went with the whole theme of this album, so I decided to only include it in the CDs. Yeah. So yeah, here are the summaries of my tunes from my album, and yeah, please give it a listen. And if you want to buy the physical copy, although it's only available in Korea, if you're located outside of Korea, who wants to get the physical copy, please let me know. Either DM me or contact me via my website, and we can work something out. I still haven't quite set up my store on my website, so I don't know if that's gonna happen anytime soon. So yeah, thank you. Bye bye.